blue line demonstrates what happens if we delay by 2 years. So if we're only doing 50%, where do these roads fall in the application time frame? Are they falling between the 5 and 10 year mark? Or is this going to be impacted with the delay by the 2 years as in the report as well? Thank you.
Ms. Bowman.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Councillor Sadi. The roads needs study serves as our guide for selecting the roads that are receiving this treatment every year. So with half the budget, we would go out and do approximately half the work in this coming year. Certainly, we would work with that roads needs study, as well as our field experts on staff who can go out there and evaluate these roads as well, prioritizing those next ones for the following year. The graph that you see before you is meant to represent the asset life cycle and how application of a slurry seal will help to prevent loss and degrading on the road. I can't actually pinpoint exactly where it would be on this. It would depend on the road specific as well. But, and certainly Ms. Jenkins is welcome to hop in here, but we would also use the roads needs study and the roads rehabilitation program to keep on top of all of the roads that are in need of work. Ms. Jenkins, if you'd like to pop in and certainly add to those comments.
Go ahead, Ms. Jenkins.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, just to add on to what Ms. Bowman has outlined, these curves that you're seeing are theoretical curves. And so they're used to project when our roads in the roads needs study need to have work completed. That being said, we do, take a look at each of the roads and do an evaluation because these are theoretical curves, and some of our roads will deteriorate faster than these curves, and some will deteriorate slower. So I think, even though we're reducing the slurry seal budget by 50%, we would be looking at the roads that are on the list and prioritizing based on condition and based on, assessment in real time. And then, yes, we can absolutely look at, if there are additional works that are needed, supplementing those works through the roads rehab program for resurfacing, and our operations team to determine which roads will be slurry sealed versus which will be resurfaced or reconstructed. So we're planning on continuing to have those conversations and making sure that we're prioritizing the works, even with a reduced budget, to ensure that we're keeping our road network well maintained.
Thank you, Ms. Jenkins. I will say that I know communications is listening, and I will say that this is one of the questions that I get time and time again, is how come you're doing X road a second time and my road is still waiting to get done? And it's usually a slurry seal application that's being applied, but it's just understanding that if you don't do that work and during that time when it's most effective, that it could cause more work to be done in the future. And I think that's just a message that is hard for people to understand when they're waiting desperately for their road to be resurfaced or redone. Other questions and comments? Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. A question pertaining to the lighting strategy or the street lighting program. My question is, do we do this internally? Do we contract it out? And then I have a second question follow up after that.
Thank you. Do you have a page number?
Oh, sorry, 213.
Thank you. Ms. Bowman?
Thank you, Your Worship. If you could just give me a second on that, I'm just consulting with the team in the background. If there's a second question, we can...
Well, it kind of goes along with that, so I need to have the answer to this one first of all.
Ms. Jenkins?
Thank you, Your Worship. Sorry, I can jump in on this one. Yes, so we do work closely with InPower on this project to install new streetlights. We look closely with them with respect to where their existing poles are, where new poles might need to be installed. So this is something that we are actively collaborating with them on. And as we move forward with our one town, one team approach, we're looking to do even more integration with InPower in the future. Some of the work at this point is still contracted out through tenders, et cetera, but we're looking at trying to build a one town, one team approach even further for this.
That's exactly where I'm going with this, is that I don't know why we just don't transfer the responsibility of all streetlights just to InPower and let them manage it, because A, they have the equipment, B, they're a utility, they understand these things, and it could also add to their inventory for future communications needs that we've discussed in council in past. So I like the direction you're going. Why not just take the final step and hand over the entire responsibility to them and take it off the budget and let them manage it?
Mr. Rayner?
Thank you, Worship. Through you to Councillor Waters. It's a great point, and one that we'd like to explore further. The problem, Councillor Waters, is the OEB. It's very, very particular about the kinds of businesses and the work that the LDC can do. And in part, that's because they are a monopoly. And so the OEB watches very, very carefully. So for example, one of the things we've been talking about is whether the hydro company could run the fiber on the hydro poles, and it's not permitted. They can rent the poles to another entity like enterprises, for example. And similarly, in this case, I don't have the exact regulation in front of me, but I suspect that that's part of the challenge. InPower couldn't deliver this specific service, but they can certainly contract. And in this case, I think we refer to InPower, but I think in most cases, we're actually talking about enterprises, and it's InPower staff that provide that service to enterprises, the affiliate company, and that's the one that actually does this. But certainly we can explore further whether there can be transfers to enterprises. As you know, Councillor, enterprises is a shelf company in one sense. You know, it doesn't have a lot of operational things at the moment, but it is growing, and with the cell towers and stuff, that could be a move in the future. So we take your point. Thank you.
Yeah, I might be incorrect, but I thought in the city of Toronto, I thought the street lights were managed and repaired by Toronto Hydro, not the city of Toronto. So that's why I was inquiring about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Jenkins, did you have a follow-up with that?
Through your worship to Councillor Waters, yes, just to confirm, InPower does own the poles. However, the town is the owner of the streetlights and is responsible for maintenance and repair and replacement and installing the new lights. So that's where there's a little bit of coordination that's required. But at the end of the day, the town does own that infrastructure, the streetlight infrastructure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I had Councillor Fowler.
Thank you, Your Worship. On page 207, under RDS 349, we have the road rehabilitation program. I'm seeing here under the scope, it says including resurfacing of paved roads and asphalt overlay of gravel roads. My question is, when I spoke with Mr. Inwood last year, he stated there were very, very few gravel roads left. Can we get an idea of how many streets we have that are not paved in Innisfil?
Ms. Bowman?
Thank you, Worship. The streets that are currently running a gravel surface are the second line and third line between Highway 11 and Reeve, as well as Guildford Road from Highway 11 to where it dead ends. And if you can bear with me for a minute, I'll find out what the measurement is.
It's main reason I'm asking. Sorry.
I just want to interrupt. I think there's a few more than that, Ms. Bowman. There's the 13th, which is south of, the 14th, the 15th. And there's still some in Cookstown.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Ms. Bowman.
My apologies, Mayor Dolan. So these are the streets where we run the gravel resurfacing program. But I can still check on the numbers for the actual length of gravel road, which would be inclusive of all of them.
Okay, perfect. The main reason I'm asking is because we have a few small residential streets that are not being seen to with regards to paving. And I'm just looking to see the general idea of what it would take to minimize the because I want to understand the gravel to resurface the road. They have a machine that in Ward 5 we had two until recently, and one was recently paved over Crescent Road, leaving Wallace itself. So to get the machine out there to resurface the road once, twice a year, to handle it and everything else, I was just wondering the cost comparison versus potentially paving it so we can manage it better, I guess would be the better term.
Thank you, Councillor. You're very lucky to only have two. Sorry, I've got a list going here. Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Worship. Kind of a nice segue there. First, I just wanted to say quickly, obviously I came in late this morning because of couldn't get the school bus to get my son earlier, so I apologize for that. I know we gave direction to staff for the 0 and 1% blended tax increases for the next 2 years, and staff have delivered exactly that. I think that this pandemic is exactly the type of thing that our reserves are there for. We assured our residents that there would be no increase for 2021, and I think staff have done a great job bringing that in. Personally, I have no real issues with what staff have presented here. There's no staff additions, no increased service levels, and I really have no other concerns for the budget except for in section P, page 201. It's the service level change, concerned about cutting 159,000 for gravel resurfacing. Although I wrote it down, I don't know, can we not find a way to absorb, because in the report it says there's 67 kilometers of gravel roads in Innisfil. And I know I receive many calls for speeding, dust suppression, and potholes every year. Clearly this would slow people down, but I wonder what the trade-off would be between liability for possible vehicle damage or accidents due to reduction in maintained roads versus this budget item. I wonder about emergency vehicle response being delayed due to the condition of these roads if we're just spot addressing them. As much as we're trying to find savings, I think that we should ensure that all of our roads are safe and accessible and not take 10% of them out of the picture. I wonder if there's not a way to roll this into roads 349 somehow. Otherwise, this would actually be 3 years with limited maintenance, as we suspended the gravel resurfacing already in 2020 due to COVID-19. So obviously listen to more before I suggest any revisions, but just curious as if there's a way that we can get staff to revisit this, because clearly 67 kilometers of roadway do really need to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bowman?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Nicol. There was a word in there that certainly caught my attention, and that was safety. So this is something we never ever want to compromise on our roadways. And when it comes to gravel resurfacing, we have a couple of options here. So the gravel resurfacing budget is really for the purchase of about 4,500 tons of gravel. So that gravel gets spread on these roadways, making it easier for our graders and other machines to go out there and sculpt the road and maintain it. That is not applied to every inch of those gravel roads that I mentioned, the 2nd, 3rd, and Guildford Road every year. Usually about 2 out of those 3 sections are done. Regardless of whether we get that full load of gravel with this budget, we will still have our machines and our operators out there making sure that those roads remain smooth and safe. And they should be able to use the existing gravel treatment or the gravel allotment that we currently have in our yard in order to do spot treatment if there's an area that becomes a little bit lower or where they can't use the machines to properly sculpt the road. So certainly, even without this purchase, we believe that we can maintain that road safely and a comfortable traveling surface for those that will be on it.
Follow-up, Councillor Nicol.
Hey, Your Worship, I can appreciate that. The way that the service change request is written in our budget book, it appears that the dust control is out of the budget now, though. So I do have a concern that, you know, if we're just fixing a few potholes here and there, it appears that the dust suppression is out as well. So again, that would account for 3 years without dust suppression. That's good. So just
go ahead, Ms. Bowman.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. To Councillor Nicol, in fact, what's the word I'm looking for? The dust control, the dust control is a separate budget line that will be maintained. So our dust control treatments will continue irrespective of the gravel resurfacing budget as proposed.
Thank you. I'm going to jump in here just because it's on this same topic. And after traffic, and speeders, road condition is the next on the list, and it's typically on one of our gravel roads. And although we've been picking away at them over the years, and Councillor Fowler brought up a comment that Councillor Pring brought up probably 15 years ago, why don't we just, bite the bullet, resurface all of our gravel roads and get it done so that we can have easier maintenance, because the gravel roads do require maintenance. We typically get the calls about in the spring, very early in the spring, if we have an early spring, about the dust suppression when if it gets too dry in the spring. The other complaint I get fairly frequently is the technique of the grader operator, and the fact that there are, fewer and fewer people trained on that to actually crown and grade a road properly, because of the fact that there just isn't as many as there once was. And I often get calls also on the timing that it's graded, and that it's graded, and then the next day it rains and the potholes are back again. So, I'm with Councillor Nicol on this one. The 14th, which is between the boundary with New Tecumseh and County Road 27, should have been graveled last year, but we cut it off because of COVID. It's in horrible shape thanks to a fill dump that was down, so it got hammered with dump trucks, that road, and that fill dump, just so you know, was in New Tecumseh. The destination was New Tecumseh, not Innisfil, but still they used that road, and it was really quite a mess. So yeah, I'd be concerned about cutting that piece of the budget too much. Councillor Sadi.
Thank you. Yes, I had asked staff, Ms. Bowman, on this prior to council, and the area that's covered in this report for the gravel was 10 kilometers of roadway. I asked her if it was in high traffic areas. She said it is not. And that although this was the removal of the purchase and application of the gravel material, that they will continue to maintain these roads using equipment such as the grader to smooth the surface and remove the potholes. So, I think this area draws a lot of attention to it, but I was satisfied with those responses.
Okay, I'm saying this all tongue in cheek, Councillor, but that's spoken like a person who doesn't have any gravel roads in their ward. Sorry. Councillor Van Berkel.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was going to say the same thing, actually. And what I don't understand is, like in Ballyard, we have I think 2 or 3 roads, and they're very short roads that they got to send a grader out to do these 3, 4, sometimes 5 times a year. And it's probably one of the biggest complaints that we get on the gravel roads. I mean, the minute it rains, you get complaints. I just washed my car and I ran through a pothole, and so on and so on. And I don't understand why they wouldn't start by, doing these dead ends and these short little streets in the different communities, whether it's Cookstown, Lefroy, or wherever it is, so they don't have to send a grader in. It's got to cost money to send a grader in. I mean, these things are a couple $100 an hour if you stop and think about it. As well as I agree totally with Councillor Nicol. I mean, I have no problem with this budget, but that was one of the highlights when I went through the budget that struck me as, we shouldn't be cutting there. We should not be cutting there, and I have a bit of a problem with that because it's the gravel roads that present the most problems in this town, as far as slurry and stuff like that. I mean, that is more, a preventative measure of what's going to happen to the roads. Although some people think, when we put slurry on it as pavement, say, what kind of pavement is that? But that's not what it is. So I don't, like I said, I don't think we should be cutting, not 50% anyway. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Councillor Van Berkel. Deputy Mayor Davidson.
Thank you. I concur with Councillor Van Berkel. And I know Don Arsati doesn't have the roads. Like we have one road, which would be east of the 30th side road, one road only that's gravel. I don't know if Councillor Payne gets the complaints, but I definitely do. So all our roads are paved except for that one. And it's a pothole. And I see the grader come down 3, 4, 5 times to do it. I know there's some just to the west that are on the list. I see some getting improved. But yeah, like, you know, you got grader coming down for one road from all the way up on Isville Beach Road. It seems like I hate to see the cost for that grader to just do that one little section. So I think we really need to look at this budget and find the money to keep it going better and take it from somewhere else. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on this section, Councillor Fowler?
Thank you, Your Worship. More of a question on page 218 under the Innisfil 2030 goals. There's 2.2 implementation of e-bike and scooter program. I believe the cost is allotted $128,104. Now, if we're going to be doing this 3 years from now, are they looking under RDS 372 currently?
Ms. Bowman? Oh, Mr. King.
Thank you. I'm not sure if I was the only one missing that question, but I wouldn't mind if the council could please repeat for me. Thank you.
Yeah, you're breaking up a bit. Your internet's a bit lagging. There's some lagging.
All right. On page 218, under RDS 372, we have the implementation of the e-bike and scooter program. It says that there's a cost allowance of, is that a future plan that we're looking to do? Are we having this in the budget currently, and what would we need it 3 years in advance for, if so?
Mr. Kane, it says target completion 2024.
Yes, Your Worship. Thank you. I'm just looking at the sheet now. So that is proposed beyond. I don't think that is up for approval today. It was showing. It is showing on that roadmap to implement the 2030 goals, but the only 2 projects are showing up are for the Orbit Transit Connection and the Transit Master Plan, both those happening, one of those happening in 2021 and the other in 2022. So that may have been left in there inadvertently, but we're not asking for approval of that program today.
Okay.
My understanding.
Okay, then might I inquire what the 120,000 would be allotted for?
So it wouldn't
Gravel.
be. Mr. Kane?
Yes, yeah, through Your Worship to Councillor Fowler. Typically a capital project of that magnitude and that topic would be, there'd be a combination of costs associated with that. So we'd have some internal costs. There'd probably be some external expertise associated with that. And then much like the early days of Innisfil Transit 2, there's also the, the piloting costs as well. So, much like back in the day when I think the original budget was 125 for Innisfil Transit, we had some funds available there just to try on some of these things. So my answer to that would be a combination of all 3 of those: internal time, external expertise, and the ability to pilot some technologies to help us make a decision and report back.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question, Councillor?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, other questions or comments? Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have a question on this. I just want to apologize for not being here. I was here, but I was the bell guy that's working outside cut me off. So I'm back on.
You are,
you know that I'm here.
You are having your difficulties today.
Oh, yeah, no kidding.
Any other questions or comments on this budget? Do we have any amendments to the recommendation? Councillor Nicol.
You're on mute, Rob.
Thank you, Councillor Van Berkel. Just wondering if I could possibly get a seconder to revise this to ask staff for solutions on how to fund the gravel resurfacing operation budget within the budget direction provided by council.
That's seconded by Councillor Van Berkel. Any other questions? Okay, so we've got a mover and a seconder. Mr. Rayner.
Thank you, Worship. Don't want to slow the vote down. Just wanted to perhaps ask whether councillors are holding particular aces, can I call them that, in their pockets at this point about services that they're looking to reduce, just so that we can get a feel for this motion from Councillor Nicol. You know, it's probably it's probably really obvious to say if we could have included it, we would have. You know, we don't have any magic aces in our pocket, but always happy to go back, take a look at what we can do. But just curious if councillors are expecting to suggest service cuts anywhere. This might be a really helpful time just to give us a heads up so that we can dynamically be working on that as well. And maybe, Your Worship, if I could, just while I have the floor, just another reminder, if councillors do have recommended amendments that they're planning to make, if you want to shoot those off to clerks and myself, that'd be really helpful. Councillor Nicol did that in this case, and so just really helpful for us to be working in the background as well as we move through this. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Rayner. So can we just get clarity whether or not there is funding in this for the scooter program in this budget?
No, Your Worship, it appears that that money is for 2024. I think the team is preparing for that because there's a number of pieces we'd like to put in play if we're going to make the most out of that program. So that's why it's a good news story that we wanted to share with council and the community and get their thoughts and input on it. But that $124,000 and change is not in 21-22.
Thank you, because that would have been an easy way to solve the gravel problem. But and I guess my concern over that, and I'll say it right now, is so many municipalities have implemented these projects and then abandoned them, having to do mostly with people just leaving them on the sidewalk, tripping hazard, all that kind of thing. So I'm just telling you 2 years in advance. Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Worship. As that item there, roads 372 on the e-bikes is the 2023 or 2024. I had no concerns with it at this point, but clearly, if as CEO Rayner said, that there may be some levers that are in motion ahead of that, maybe there would be something to look at there. My question that I had on that one, I was going to leave it alone, was the library last year or 2 years ago did loaner bikes, and I know there were a bunch of bikes all around the community. I just wonder how effective that was, because I don't know where they are anymore or if we still have those. So I have a bit of concern with the e-bike suggestion as well too, because I think it may end up the same way. And again, if there's $100,000 sitting right there, I think that, as Councillor Van Berkel joked, that'd be a good spot to put some gravel. So just a question and comment, I guess.
Thank you. And I'm going to ask one more question. Then, if we were to add 100 and whatever it was, 50,000 worth of gravel, what impact would that have on our 0% increase budget if we didn't find any other savings? Ms. Webb or Mr.
Your Worship, we'll do the math for you if you want. I think it would not be a 1%, for example, but we'll get the exact math. I think Ms. Bowes had a comment though related to where the bike share program is at today.
Sure, Ms. Bowes.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, to Councillor Nicol. That program was specifically designed to be a first teaser or a taste of community engagement for the Culture Master Plan. So that's how we we launched the engagement for that strategy. So those were all donated bikes from South Simcoe Police that were refurbished. And so when that initial launch was over, we removed the bikes from the community.
Thank you, Ms. Bowes. Councillor Van Berkel.
Just a suggestion, Your Worship, and I don't know, I'm still on this Lefroy Arena thing. Can we not move it, all of it from 21, 22? Can we not move half of it to 22 and take something out of his budget and put it in 21 so that it, you know, we have that $250,000 that we can play with a little bit? I'm just suggesting, I don't know.
Mr. Rayner.
Sorry, Councillor, I missed the first part of your question, but I think about moving between 21 and 22.
Yes, it's all allotted for 21 now, $500,000. Can we not like do half in 21 and half in 22 and take something out of this budget, the 2021 budget? Like,
yeah, sorry. Yeah, it's a good question. Because we budget in the 2 years, I'm not sure it'll change the end game for coming out of these 2 years, but we can certainly look at that for sure. The piece of this that's important is that these are operating dollars that we're talking about for the gravel resurfacing, not capital dollars. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Davidson.
Thank you. Looking at sort of finding some money for these roads that people want. In the next pages that we're dealing with community activities and business plan, according to our Prime Minister, Canada could lag in getting any vaccine early in the year. And here we're doing youth programming, technology training, camping, special events. Maybe those programs that are costing us money, we should put on hold till the end of 2021 till we know that we have the vaccine properly. I just saw a news clip a few seconds ago that Canada will receive 20 million vaccines probably in the early part of the year, but that will only service 10 million Canadians because there's 2 shots. So I'm thinking we could probably cut back a lot of that special events, camping program. And I'm also looking at technology training outreach is really expensive. It's almost $500,000. So I think if we look a little bit forward, Council, we can find that money there that we can pull back from. Thank you.
Why don't we'll wait, and I'm sure that the leadership of those will have something to say that they'll want to defend their programming. So why don't we cross that bridge when we get to it and leave this, we can vote on this now. I can tell you that 150,000 on a blended tax rate would be 0.18% of an increase. So we can, I don't know if Mr. Rayner, if we pass this the way it is and then staff just comes back and says we weren't able to find 150,000 anywhere, and then leave it up to council to vote on what they wanted to do to move forward.
Your Worship, I think just in terms of tracking for everybody's sake and clarity, it may be helpful to have the amendment now, if there's a will of council to try to find, to have the gravel put back in. And then I think at the end of the day, you can take a look at all of those amendments that have been made and what the total ask is, and give us a sense of direction about what you'd like us to do if there's anything in particular about that. The nice thing about reconsideration is it's just really no reconsideration within the same meeting if council has a will to decide to move in a different direction. So that might be helpful. That way we can tally it when we come to the end.
Okay, so we had a motion moved by Councillor Nicol and seconded by Councillor Van Berkel. Okay, so now it's that staff report back on possible options for road resurfacing. I don't think that's what we wanted. I think we wanted for gravel road resurfacing. Is that enough, Councillor Nicol?
Thank you, Worship. Maybe something just along the lines of to maintain the service level, the current service level for gravel road resurfacing. Okay. Maybe a little bit stronger.
Are you okay with that, Councillor Van Berkel as the seconder?
Your worship.
Okay. All those in favor of the amendment? Opposed? That's carried. Next is the motion as amended. Moved by Councillor Nichols, seconded by Councillor Van Berkel. All those in favor? That's carried. Okay, I thought we would have spent a lot more time on that section. and I asked council then that we move forward to the community programming and activities, 225 to 242. And who has questions or comments in this section? Deputy Mayor, wasn't this the section you wanted to speak to?
Yes, thank you. I'm really glad on page 233, Council, the health and wellness programming. I'm enjoying the way that it's being read with mental health issues, as which our chief spoke about. Is something that they're doing with the Lynn project, Lynn. So I'm glad to see that in this year's budget process, and I think it can benefit our community greatly. So I just want to compliment staff on putting this forward in there, okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Councillor Nicholl.
Hey, Your Worship, I actually didn't have any issues with this, but now that I'm seem to be scrambling trying to find $159,000, I think Deputy Mayor alluded to some of the programming, and obviously we need to earmark money for the potential of having summer camps and whatever else. But I'm just wondering if there's a justification there, or if there's a way to earmark some of that, whether we go back to some sort of normal for next summer, whether we will have summer camps available, whether we'll have amenities available. I just I know we're earmarking a fair bit of money here for these programs. Just is it just the like an insurance policy that we can take care of things if things come back, or are there some cost savings that could help fund at least one other project that we're looking to do?
Thank you, Ms. Baus.
Thank you, Your Worship. To Councillor Nicholl. The strategies and plans that we put together in the programming bundle speaks to the needs that were identified by residents through the community needs assessment. And throughout the pandemic, we have continued to program and support the residents' mental health needs, their need for community connection. And so this builds upon that and the information that we glean from those roundtables with the community.
Thank you. And do we have a talking about the day camps? I know we offered alternative day camps this year with Camp in a Box, and but it wasn't fiscally possible for us to do day camps in person because of the requirements by the health unit. And I wondered if this if we're assuming that this can happen this summer.
Through you, Your Worship, on the summer day camps, the province is currently actually looking at revamping the guidelines. So it is our hope that the guidelines will be changed enough that we will be able to implement summer day camps. Of course, it will depend on, the rolling ball of where COVID actually is. But there has been changes related to the camps, even specifically so that we can run PD day camps and so forth. So the hopes is that we'll continue doing that, and also, re-implementing the virtual camp piece, and the Camp in the Box, as you mentioned, was quite successful.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on this section? Councillor Waters, did I see your hand? I'm sorry. No? Okay. All right. Any amendments for this section? Seeing none, mover and a seconder for the recommendation as was provided. Councillor Fowler and a seconder. Councillor Nicol, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Public and environmental protection and business plans. It's a biggie. Who wants to start? Councillor Orsatti?
First at the gate. Yes, for the chief, questions in regards to sorry, I didn't get the page here. I guess a general question on your capital purchases that I was reading in the AMO website about a new municipal group buying program that's now available to fire departments in Ontario. And I wonder if this is something that you'll be, you'll be looking into before we do the requisitions for the purchases requested in under your capital items. That's my first question.
Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Orsatti. Yes, actually, I did notice that as well, and I spoke to the Finance Department and Procurement Division specifically, and they are very aware of that that group purchasing agreement or group, and they are exploring it now. And I'm sure that, as they always do, they will be involving themselves with any purchasing groups that will save the taxpayers money.
Then,
do you have another question, Councillor Orsatti?
I do. Going on this question on page 254, which is in regards to platooning. I think it's in this one. Whoop, sorry, I'm just getting my computer matching that. The station platooning. So I'm just wondering if there is other communities that are doing this and if that you're aware of. I wasn't sure if I'd heard something about Aurelia that has this in place, and I'm not sure whether that was misquoted by someone. And I guess I'm also looking at the report, and you always look at benefits of trialing something out, but I'm wondering how much of an impact this has on the volunteer firefighters for balancing their other jobs and their lives. Like if we already have a recommendation to reduce the volunteer firefighters, so there's quite an impact there. But if we start to lose some of the staff because it's not working for them, if I remember, the cost of a recruitment program is quite expensive. So I just wonder if you could just share some information on that one. Thank you.
Chief Rayburn?
Certainly, through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Orsatti. Yes, this platooning concept is relatively new. It has been tried in a few places before. I think Caledon did try it in 2016, and they are a large community of about 7 fire stations, I believe, and they did try it. And they determined after a trial that it was not, did not fit their needs and was not beneficial, so they did not continue with the pilot. Aurelia, I talked to the chief there the other day. They have a type of platooning, but it's only for training. So they sort of have half the people will come and train one week and half another week. As far as response go, they have a full response, the same as we do currently. As to the effect on the volunteers, I have no doubt that there will be. All of our volunteer firefighters are dedicated individuals that when the tones go off and there's an emergency to respond to, they all want to go and help. So I have no doubt that it will be very hard for some of them to say, oh, it's not my platoon to be on today. I won't be able to go and help someone in the town. So I have little doubt that will have an effect on them. It's something that we thought we're trying to find ways of finding efficiencies and reducing costs. And this is something we thought we would try. I don't know if it's going to work. We've also, since we've sort of proposed this concept, we've spoken with Barry Fire, who does our dispatching. And although Innisfil has the infrastructure in place to be able to platoon our staff, the dispatching center is not prepared to make this change at this time. They don't have the capability to do it. So that is something we did not know. We knew that we had the infrastructure to be able to make it happen. It does not appear now, as we've really dove into it, that we're going to get the support from the dispatching center that we need. So I'm not sure that this is going to be achievable as we've dove into it further, take a really hard look at it.
Thank you. I'm going to add my 2 cents worth too here, because I did have the opportunity to speak to Mayor Alan Thompson from Caledon, and so he was the first one that kind of tweaked to me that they tried it for about 6 months and it didn't work. So I was very concerned about going to a 2-year pilot for something that didn't work for another community, and I also look at it another way too is. And I'm going to use an example of phosphorus in Lake Simcoe. So, you know, there's too much phosphorus going into Lake Simcoe. Don't look at me like that. I really do have a point at the end of this. There's too much phosphorus going into Lake Simcoe, and so they target the wastewater control plants as, you know, the place that, you know, they're gonna get efficiencies and cut down. The wastewater control, pollution control plants amount for only 7% of the phosphorus in the entire lake. So the cost of firefighting, the costs of the volunteers is such a small portion of the budget, and they provide so much service for so little cost. To try to find savings in that piece reminds me of trying to, you know, cut phosphorus out of the wastewater treatment plant. So I worry also about morale. If you and finance, like, let's face it, they're called volunteers. They're not volunteer. They make some money. But if you put them on a platoon system and now they're only making a quarter of what they made in the past, which was very small to begin with, is it going to be worth it for them to continue? And many of the volunteer firefighters in Innisfil, much of what they do is community building and community spirit, like the tree lighting at the halls, and you know, just the people that you call on when you're having parades and so on and so forth. So I worry about the issue with morale at the same time. Other questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Davidson?
Yeah, I might need to be educated here a bit, but a couple of years ago, I was at one of the fire halls, and I was informed that when a volunteer quits, there's certain pieces of equipment that cannot be passed on to a new volunteer. I wasn't sure if it was boots, hats, coats can be passed on. And I kind of went, are you, like, what do you mean? And they said, no, once we buy this stuff and that volunteer quits, we have to buy a new one for that particular fireman. And these things are not cheap. I'm sure the hats are well over $100 and the boots are probably a couple $100 easy. So if we're going through how many volunteers a year where we're not using those boots, we're not using those hats, is there not a way we could, where the fire association could get its act together, no pun intended there, but get rid of that kind of problem? I'm sure the size 10 is the size 10 is the size 10. So I think we can maybe look at cost cutting there, because I'd hate to see the volunteers cut. And I know the morale would be impacted. And I know a lot of these guys, they're amazing. So I don't really want to see this cut take place.
Chief Rayburn, any comments on the uniform equipment?
Yes, through you, your worship, to Deputy Mayor Davidson. I'm not sure what that would have referred to. I mean, T-shirts and baseball caps would be the only thing that I don't think we recycle. If a volunteer leaves with us, we do collect all the things that we've issued, whether it be the boots, the hat, the helmets, the coat, the jacket, everything, the pagers. We recover everything.
Okay, it was just brought to my attention. It was brought to my attention. I went, that's odd. So it didn't make sense to me. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Chief, how many, sorry, I'll get to you, Councillor Van Berkel. How many vacant positions do we have in the volunteers right now? Like, you're saying to do this by attrition, but how many are there now versus how many are approved?
Through your worship, so if you're speaking now about the reduction of volunteers, not the platooning, I'm assuming, so the reduction that is proposed, currently we have 89 active volunteer firefighters. So our full complement when every position is full and active is 99.48 or 98.4, which 99. So there are now about, I guess that's about 10 that are vacant. So we haven't seen a decline in response or effectiveness with the reduction of that 10. So generally this happens when people leave, they move out of the area, or they get a job that doesn't allow them to volunteer, or their family life gets to a position or something changes where they are not able to volunteer. That's where the positions become inactive or unfilled. So what we're suggesting is that we can probably, throughout the other, out of the 89, if we reduce it to 84, throughout all 5 stations, we could still be very effective and not have a level of service decrease. And that would be through attrition over time. As people left and moved out of the area, we would wait until we got our levels dropped to a certain level, then we would have a recruit class to bring back up to 84.
Thank you. Questions? Or sorry, Councillor Van Berkel.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. Just to follow up on the recycling of the gear. I know I was a volunteer fireman for almost 20 years, and nothing was ever given to us. It all went back to the fire department, even boots. And whenever somebody, left, if one of the volunteers needed something that was a little bit better, it was passed on. So it's never that. But I also, with the volunteers, and I read this, and I read the master fire plan that we did a couple of years ago, and I'm just wondering how far that we are deviating from that. Like, we were talking about our fire prevention officer, if it's just contract, are we going to let him go hire him? And I just kind of remember reading something that it said in there that we actually needed 4 instead of 2. So I'm not sure. I mean, I'm just trying to recollect when I read that document. So I just wonder how far we're deviating from that master plan, which we paid a lot of money for to get done. Or if we're following that. And I just wanted to hear some comment on that.
Chief Urban.
Through your worship to Councillor Van Berkel. Yes, the latest master fire plan was done in 2013, and it did have many recommendations in there. We tried to stick to it. There were some amendments made to it, or deviations from it, I guess we could say, over the last few years that we have increased significantly through council support and direction our full-time staff, building of the new station and staffing it. So that was not in the master fire plan from 2013. So that has really changed the way we do business. So it does allow, because we have 2 fully staffed trucks that respond to incidents, we have more full-time staff arriving. So we still need volunteers. We can't work without them. So they still respond. We don't need as many of them. That is where we think we can reduce by the 5 more through attrition and not see a decreased level of service. I can't remember, to be quite honest, what that talked about. I know it talked about increasing the prevention division. I don't recall if it was to the level of 4, but I'd have to get back to you on that, Councillor Van Berkel. I believe it suggested an increase in the prevention division, but I don't know the exact number. I'll have to get back to you on that.
Follow up, Your Worship. Yeah, just I guess 2013, that was around the time that I was last on council. So I remember doing that. And I just wonder if we shouldn't update that master fire plan, because, a lot has happened since then. And I always thought that was a pretty good guide. And if it's out of date, then I really think that we, should look at updating that.
Do we know when the next update comes for that? Is it cyclical, Chief Rayburn?
To your worship and Councillor Van Berkel, it's not really cyclical. We do it as we need it. We did switch to another type of measurement that we're using now that uses data to say where we should go and how successful we are and areas of weakness. We are working with that, as well as the shared fire service review that's going to be undertaken here shortly with Bradford West Goldenberry. I believe that's going to give us some valuable information that we can use. And I know that that may be, depending what happens with that review, that may be a good time then to do an in-depth review of whether it's one service, two services, wherever that review leads us.
Councillor Van Berkel, go ahead.
Yeah, just to follow up, Your Worship, I think that's very important. Like the police services and the fire department, those are, two of the things that are probably most important in our community. I mean, that's safety and policing. I mean, so, to set budgets without having something that we can work from and say, we're going to eliminate firefighters or we're going to hire firefighters without the proper knowledge of what we should do and shouldn't do. I'd like to see something before and I understand we're doing a budget and we're trying to, save money here, but I would really like to see the technical part of it too, rather than say, yeah, we'll cut firefighters and do whatever, because we don't know what we're doing here. Like when it comes to that, we know that we need this safety. We're talking about a fire hall that's falling apart and, we may have to close up and whatever. So I think we need to get this together. You need a document saying, look, this is proof, this is definite. This is what we got to work by, rather than start, looking at things that we really don't know anything about. And those are my comments. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Van Berkel. My only reservation to that is, A, it's not in the budget, but also with the work we're doing with Bradford right now, that we could do that whole report only to have it turned upside down if we choose to move forward further with Bradford. I don't know. $100,000 for how many volunteer firefighters? 14?
I'm sorry, Your Worship, what you're referring to?
Oh, sorry, the savings for not having the volunteers. Volunteer firefighter salaries is going down by 100,000 in 2021 and 101,000 in 2022. It just seems that's the full year impact. It seems like that's a lot of people for that little amount of money. Councillor Van Berkel.
Yeah, Your Worship, that's exactly where I was going. If we do the study and it says, no, we need those firefighters, for $100,000, we're letting them go. And then we have to go back and hire them again. And that's what I was looking at.
Yeah, so just to be clear though, nobody's getting let go, right? It's either vacant now or through attrition.
Right.
I don't want anyone to think that we're going to let people go. Okay, Councillor Fowler. And then Councillor Setti.
Thank you, Worship. Again, Chief Rayburn, I apologize. I'm going to be bringing this up with the fire inspector. The question came to mind after we spoke this morning. Now, as we have unified, or we're working together with both Bradford and Innisfil fire departments, and this particular program is paid for through DC charges, is there not a way we can split the cost between the two cities and actually, increase the workload to cover the cost significantly? Is there something we can do? This idea that it's a fire permit, I understand it's a safety, it's a prerequisite, an ounce of prevention versus a pound of cure sort of scenario. If we can find a problem before it becomes a problem, it takes it down a level. Is there something we can do to make that happen in that regard?
Through Your Worship, to Councillor Fowler, it's something we can look at. I mean, it's worth noting that Bradford Fire and Emergency Services currently has 2 inspectors now. They are extremely busy. They're a very rapidly growing community as well. So we're sort of we're trying to get Innisfil to that same level. Absolutely, I agree with you 100% that prevention is the first line of defense, and if it all else fails, that's when we have to go and put a fire out. Spending money up front in prevention and in fire education is money well spent, in my opinion.
Can I follow up on that, and then I'll go to you, Councillor Seti? So, is it very specific training, or is it something that a full-time firefighter, if we've got 5 of them sitting at a hall for a 24-hour shift, you know, could one of them go out and do a fire inspection and help generate revenue that way?
To you, Your Worship, and all of council, we do that currently now. So we do have our suppression crews that are on shift. They do inspections now, both for fire permits to inspect large burn piles. They also do in-service inspections. They've just received some special training over the last year or so that they are quasi inspectors, I guess, if you want to call it that. They're not certified at the same level as a full fire inspector, but they do go around to commercial buildings, especially in high risk occupancies, and make sure that exits are clear, you know, that exit signs are operating. They do that now, and they report back to the fire prevention division to go and enforce the whatever steps they need to take to enforce the fire code. They also do smoke alarm programs where they go door to door and visit homes and make sure that they have working smoke alarms and provide some education there as well. So our suppression firefighters do not just, you know, they do look after the prevention, they do support the prevention side as well as the suppression side.
Thank you for that. Councillor Sadi?
Thank you. Yes, I had questions in regards to the one. I just want to make a comment back on the platooning, that on the one page, it did state, hang on, I go back to that platooning. It did state that it would be more efficient to trial this program, but I think that you just said that dispatch would not, does not have the capability to do that. So I think in finding out further details, there's more glitches into that program. The one I want to discuss is following up on Councillor Fowler. I had flagged here was looking at the inspector. The inspector, which is, it's not in the budget. And, you know, as Councillor Van Berkel has said, you know, police and fire are the essential things that residents are most concerned about, and would really be watching whatever we are chiseling away, cutting and modifying that would hinder whatever they feel is a service to their safety and their comfort in the community. So when I look at on page 32, it has fire inspector convert from contract to full-time. Now this is not in the budget, but it's for council consideration. It shows that the blended tax impact is at 0%, with a notation that the fire inspector is funded from the inspection reserve, and it would have no tax levy impact. When I was looking up the information on the inspector, going through the report and different things, so this contractor, their contract ends June 21st. We have one inspector, one officer, so we're currently sitting at what Bradford has. As the police have reported today in their budget, we have a higher population than the town of Bradford. The inspector does, I think I was reading, inspection of buildings. We also have the second dwelling units, where there's a proposed third dwelling units that's coming up before council and asking of the public. I saw in the report that they've conducted 197 more inspections than in the previous year. That they do outdoor and spent time on industrial and outdoor storage, education, first line of defense in schools and with seniors, and new programs that chalk one up for fire safety, 1,900 residents involved, especially during a pandemic. And I think fire prevention is integral to the community, and especially one with growth. And I'd really like to discuss this with the other members of council. I know that staff have done a great job with this budget. I think we're all quite impressed with how they've been able to manage things. And but I'd like to look at different possibilities with this inspector role. Two options. One of ideally changing this from a contract position to a full-time position. If we couldn't afford to do that in 2021, which is a tighter year, continue the contract for 2021 and then stage this over to full-time in 2022. Because I feel that this is essential to the safety and with the growth that we have in the community. I really have a concern with cutting down inspectors. And the bylaw gets so many calls and complaints with people with backyard fires, with fireworks and all the rest of this. And I think it rolls over into other departments and increased costs in additional departments, and just wondered if you want to respond to that.
Chief?
Through your worship to Councillor Orsatti, I think Director Kane might want to mention or have a few words on this. First, I just would like to clarify one thing. I think I may have used the wrong date on the end of that pilot. I did look into that, I mentioned it this morning, and the current pilot does end February 26th of 2021. That was my bad. I gave you a wrong date earlier today. Sorry about that.
I'm sorry, what was the date again, Chief?
The current contract will end February 26, 2021.
Thank you. A little bit of background noise there. I don't know if it's Councillor Fowler, if you're not muted.
Mr. Kane was going to respond to my comments.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that people were properly muted so we could hear. Thank you. Mr. Kane.
I believe it was me, Mayor Dolan, as I was trying to quieten my household for me to respond to council. Yes, I think the real issue here is just level of service, right? We've heard quite clearly that, we are attaining a higher level of service. Inspections, I think, in the 200s, potentially allowing us to inspect up to 800 times a year. And certainly that's something that we want to consider. So the FTE wasn't included for a variety of reasons. The main one is, and I think Mayor Dolan, you spoke of this earlier today, was, with the changes on the horizon with respect to shared services, it's nice not being bound by an FTE position if we want to maintain that flexibility. And also too, both internally in that one town, one team approach too, if there is a better way to deliver that service, and hence why your director of growth is talking to a fire issue, if there is a better way to deliver that service, then internally too, we have some time, we want a bit more time, a bit more analysis to properly fund that FTE for the longer term. So, thankfully, that position right now is funded by the building department and then through those inspection services. We've been able to confirm since this morning, that position could continue to be funded as we go through this analysis to maintain that contract, because contracts are, they form part of the operating budget and not a regular service level increase request. So we do have the ability to cover that for 2021 and to identify that new funding source moving forward, so that we can come back to council with that 2023-2024 analysis with that FTE, with the benefit of that internal analysis and the benefit of that external analysis too, with respect to shared services. And part of that will be the analysis, with respect to, safety of the community. I've heard some comments, or we've heard some comments just recently, or as part of this deliberation on this service area, just about, that ongoing reflection on community safety and analysis that we need to do that. So while that takes place, I think it is possible to maintain that contract position and have this debate in that next budget cycle further to that analysis. Thank you.
Thank you. So that would extend the contract to the end of this budget cycle. Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Councillor Fowler?
Just by out of curiosity, are we going to be having to put a motion on the floor, an amendment to extend the contract, considering it is set to expire in February?
Oh. Go ahead, Mr. Reiner.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship, members of council. I think I'm about to steal the words right out of Mr. Kane's mouth, but Just to clarify, council doesn't approve contract positions. Those are administration's bailiwick. So we don't need a council motion to approve any kind of extension to a contract. What council does is approve the dollars and the funding associated with that. So if we need more dollars out of an excess to the building reserve, we'll bring that report back to council in the new year. As you can tell, there's some analysis that still needs to go on. We can't even get the date right. The contract goes until April, not February. Anyway, let us take this one back, and we'll bring a report forward in the new year if we need more funding for this this important position. We're totally aligned with council that this is a critical role and a service in our community, and we'll work hard to make sure that we can continue to provide the safest service to our community. We'll just need to work on the details a bit, and we'll bring that back in the new year. Thank you.
And that's more than fair. I mean, we know things are fluid here and changing on a dime, and we know these books were produced a month ago and stuff happens. So not an issue at all. Councillor Waters.
I was just going to say the same thing, is that I think we need to allow the chief some flexibility, whether it comes down to the volunteers or this contract position, because he's in the middle of coming up with a plan with Bradford. And I think that may dictate a lot of things that might change in the next couple of years anyways. And so I think we got to allow him the flexibility to make those changes as necessary. I agree. I think the position for the inspector is an absolute must, and we should keep it as a contract position. And once we're through the pandemic and we know what's happening with Bradford, then we can nail that one down as a full-time if we needed it at that time. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? I have a comment actually on page 273. So happy to see the one-time dog license. That's huge. And we should give a giant shout out to Diane Sykes. She was the first one to come forward with a deputation to council on this many, many years ago. So shout out to Diane for that. Again, this is an area of a lot of phone calls. And I noticed that we had not approved the municipal law enforcement officer, 2 FTEs for community standards. Do we have any vacant positions in that department right now? Who's going to answer that? Mr. Rayner?
I don't believe so, Your Worship. We've got the 4 full-time individuals. I see Mr. Kane nodding. So, yep, we're no vacancies at the moment. And of course, we do supplement with contract staff quite a bit in that area, as you know, through the summer and even in the winter.
Thank you. I thought there was at one point talk about a bylaw manager bylaw or something. Did that not happen?
Yes, we continue to review the supervisory needs of that team. Mr. Vickers, who is turning on his video, and I'm happy to have him comment. It's under his responsibility at the moment. Mr. Vickers continues to be pulled in multiple different directions, but I'll let him comment further on the thinking around this area.
Mr. Vickers.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, we do have a vacant manager of bylaw position open. We have gone through one recruitment process for assorted reasons. It didn't quite work out the way we thought it would. So we still have that position open and are working towards resolving what we might do there to make ourselves more efficient in that regard. So we're looking at a number of things, and because there is a certain amount of stress on that group, and so we're figuring out how best to maximize our efforts on behalf of the community.
Thank you, Mr. Vickers. And yeah, so that is in the budget then, that position, and it is vacant, that manager position. Okay, thank you. And I don't know the answer to this question, and it's an age-old one. And I think if I did have the answer, I could sell it to every municipality in Ontario and further. But the amount of resources that goes into neighbor-to-neighbor conflicts, and the fact that bylaw particularly gets drawn into that particular circle, and there's no way out and there's no win in those issues typically. I don't know if I'm just where I'm going with this, other than at one point I was dreaming about a kind of a facilitation person that could be a buy-in from both neighbors, that they would sit down with the conciliator and try to work through the issues. I just know it's a huge draw on police, on bylaw enforcement, and there just seems to be no solution. Mr. Rayner?
Thanks, Your Worship. No, that suggestion is great, and you've made that before to us, and we are exploring potential contract mediation services to be able to facilitate neighbors getting along, for lack of a better phrase. And I think council's getting a good sense of, we have a lot of really great ideas. We don't have any money. So unfortunately, getting people to pay for facilitation is just a real hard sell, even though they ought to do it because it would save the gray hairs for sure. But it's the kind of thing that's on the wish list, and we hope to be able to find a very creative way, a solution to get that forward at some point soon.
Thank you. And okay, go ahead, Councillor Sadi.
Thank you. Just with regards to the bylaw officers for this department, I believe there's currently 4. Their hours are 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., 7 days a week. And I think I was reading, number of cases in 2019 was 1,966. We're projected to finish 2020 with 3,200. And 2021 maybe slightly dropped to 2,850. So I'm wondering, how is the department? I mean, this is the biggest, I'm sure in other wards besides mine, the biggest demand is for bylaw officers, for property standards, for the fence issues, for the dogs barking, the Airbnb, the pools, the noise, the everything. It's one of the biggest, and I just wonder, how is the department, Mr. Vickers, how do you see being able to support the community in the next 2 years with the same staffing without the increase? I see that there was a consideration. I believe there was, I'm looking, 2 FTEs. However, if those were something that council even considered, it's a 0.14% impact to the tax budget. Although I thought bylaw always sort of paid for itself. So I'm just wondering, how are we going to handle the growth and the increased number of requests with the current numbers that you have?
Thank you, through your worship, to Councillor Rosati. Yeah, it's a challenge, but the guys are great. The team's great. What we do is our parking revenue generally pays for our students. And we've had 6 the last couple of summers, and they do pay for themselves. The challenge is this year we're trying to dissuade visitors who are the lion's share of our ticket payer people. And so our revenue's down a little bit in that regard. One of those students has graduated and turned out to be quite the homegrown product. So we've kept them on a contract. And so she makes a considerable contribution to shoring up our staffing level. We also have some administrative staff that we're sort of borrowing off of other areas to sort of help with the administrative work to free up the guys for the frontline work. And then we have a couple of people that pinch hit out of the building department. So it is fairly busy, and it is a full workload for the team. Like they're go, go, go. And there's a bit of stress, but we are managing. It's just that as we do grow as a community, that pressure is going to continue, and we might not be able to squeeze much more out of the team. So that's where the ask comes from. So at some point, maybe it's not this year, but maybe it's the next budget, but at some point it is worth a more fulsome review of what the staffing level needs to be, or we talk about a different service level. Maybe we don't start work so early, or we have to lower our expectations, or we have to add a little bit to the team. So we are looking at a number of ways. Like that's an ongoing process to figure out how we make the most of what we have, and so we are doing that. So as for instance, like the dog licensing. So we figured, okay, here's a way to make this a more efficient way to cover the ground we need to cover. So we continue to look for those kinds of operational savings, which is a great exercise. But at some point, I guess part of to go back to one of your other sort of questions, I think with everybody staying home this year, we all had an opportunity to look out our window and notice what our neighbors doing. Mm-hmm. And so, not that they weren't doing what they're doing before, but now we had a chance to phone bylaw and chirp about it. So mm-hmm. Our calls have gone up. I don't know that our anybody's doing anything different. It's just we got time to sit at home and call bylaw. So, I mean, the staff goes out and tries to deal with those situations as best we can. And as we all get more densely together, like when we were all farmers, we didn't care about what our neighbors did. We just went and helped them when they called us. But now when we all live, so my bathroom window, I look at it and see my neighbor's bathroom window, I can phone bylaw if I don't like what they're doing. But anyway, as we get closer together, we'll be a greater need for bylaw guys, but we'll have that discussion when council.
Follow-up question, Your Worship, if I may. So you would still have that option to hire those co-op students in the summer, which then allow our bylaw officers to direct their attention and time to other areas, because I know in the summer it's very heavy on those parking infractions. So I see you nodding your head, so I guess that's affirmative, is it?
Yeah, the bylaw students are wonderful. The trick is, as those cases, that caseload of real cases increases, you really need a more mature person to weigh into those kind of complex situations. So when you get into dealing with neighbor disputes, and sometimes there's social issues or mental health issues, it's not really fair to send a 20-year-old into those kinds of situations. Yeah. So there really is an increasing workload. The students are significant help. I mean, they can drive around in the winter and give us tickets for parking on the road. They can give us tickets for parking at road ends, mm-hmm. and doing, simple things that we shouldn't be doing. But when it gets complicated, there's real training and real experience and real staff required to handle that.
Mm-hmm. And I think I'll just end with one other final comment. I think that as council looks at other requests by our community, I'm just going to throw chickens out there, that if chickens does become something that is a direction that the town does go with a permit process to ensure health and safety and meeting all regulations, that's an increase of bylaw activities as well for inspections. Thank you.
Through you, Your Worship. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Councillor Rosati. Chickens or signage or any of those kinds of governmental regulatory situations that we want to get into, there's a staffing complement that goes along with that kind of regulation. And so we'll have to, when we come to that debate, we'll have to we'll have to discuss the staff and budget implications of those kinds of enforcement measures.
Thank you, Mr. Vickers. Just one more question, if I could, to you, and that is animal control. So we used to outsource it. We've internalized it now, and this is just anecdotally from my perspective. I'm getting less calls, so less complaints. But I wanted to know, how is it working on your end?
Wrong button. Yeah, I think it's working great. So yeah, we had outsourced it, and I think we're saving in the neighborhood of $35,000 a year. We trained our own staff, and they're making the calls. Last vehicle we got, we fitted it out specifically for animal control, and I think it's been working. I think it's been working pretty great. It involves us more directly in the community. I know it's job satisfaction for the staff because a lot of times they're returning the animals to their owners, and there's sort of that firsthand connection with the community on a sort of family member level. So it's actually added a reward component as well to our job, and budget-wise, it's a win as well. So, sorry, I lost your question there, I think.
That you answered it perfectly. Thank you so much. Other questions and comments on this section? Councillor Fowler?
Yes, one item on page 276, AMD 35, the electric vehicle charging station. It's just, I've got a couple questions now. Is this going to be accessible by residents to charge their vehicles, or is it specifically for town vehicles as we evolve into maybe more electric-based vehicles? And if so, how much would it cost to charge, or would it be something that we would offer as a service to the residents?
Mr. Kane? You're muted, Mr. Kane.
I'll let Mr. Vickers go first. I just wanted him to know that I was here to supplement any answer he might have.
All right, Mr. Vickers.
So the vehicle, I mean, in terms of our sustainability goals, the thought was that the next vehicles that we acquire for the municipality, building department, or bylaw department, that we would be looking at electrical vehicles that we would charge when they're not being used. So that would, be through the evening, which would mean those electrical stations could be available through the day when someone was visiting town hall. So I'm not sure how the money will work, how those quite work. I'm not sure. So I'll let Tim go before I mess up.
Not at all, Barry. Yeah, so the idea was to just, we have to take those initial steps to have that infrastructure in place. In this case, primarily for our own fleet at Town Hall. But to the point being made that, there is an opportunity once that infrastructure is in place, and to Barry's answers that, in the off-peak times or when that's not being used, it would be an additional resource for the traveling public. And the collection of revenue or the system to book or reserve that would be looked at a more town-wide basis, so that any of the town assets for charging could have a revenue capture component and a booking component for when the town itself doesn't need those facilities.
So, follow up, if I may. The idea being that we try this out. If it works, we can expand it into other sections of the municipality to be a revenue generating source as well. Thank you.
That is correct. Yeah.
Councillor Van Berkel.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, on the electric charging stations in Venice, Florida, they have a parking lot, and it's just like if you go into a municipal parking lot where you get a ticket to put in your windshield. There you go, get a ticket, and you stick it in the machine where the charger is, and it says 1 hour charging, 2 hour charging, and I think it was like $8 for an hour or something. So there is ways to make money on it.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Orsatti, and then Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm sorry, I wanted to to go back to page 254 in the fire, I'm not sure if I understood where we left that on the platooning, because I don't agree with this recommendation. I think that there's been a large impact to the staffing, and this will impact to the volunteer firefighters. They did have a previous pre-approved budget to have more staff, although it's only sitting at 89. They were pre-approved previously to have an additional 14. So although no one is losing their job as a result of that, it's staying at the 89. And then with the reduction, only through attrition when those firefighters leave 5, so we'll be down to 84. And then to take those same group of volunteers who, Your Worship, you spoke about all that they provide in the community. I just think to the morale and to their lives for the small amount of money that they make, I'd really like to see this item removed out of the budget. As our CAO said, we could make recommendations. Staff will come back later in looking at our recommendations, coming to council and letting us know how does this impact the overall budget, and then we can make decisions on those, on our requests at that time. But I would really like to see the platooning item not happen.
Thank you. I think that we kind of had that discussion, and that's probably where we were going, but we're going to finish this section and then make our recommendation at the end. So if you want to start to craft something, feel free while other people are asking questions on the other pieces. Absolutely. I'm sorry, there was another hand. Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Mayor. Just 2 comments. One was that I think the way they're planning on using those electrical vehicle chargers in terms of using the municipality at nighttime and then for the public during the daytime, I think is a wonderful, efficient use of that technology. So it's going 24/7. So I think I think that was a great idea that we use it for both of them. And I was just going to comment on the platooning as well. I think we are going in that general direction anyways. It doesn't seem the chief thinks that we can make it happen logistically. So I think that's one that we could probably all agree to pull. In terms of the volunteering reduction, I think the chief seems to think that he can. There'll be no safety issues with the reduction over time, with allowing people just to kind of leave when they're ready to retire, that kind of stuff. So I'm okay with that piece.
Thank you for that. And I was happy to, and in my questions to the chief, I was happy to hear that the policy here in town is to support double hatting. So if you're a full-time firefighter in Big Bay Point and you live in Lefroy, you can still, or I guess in Stroud, you can still volunteer in your own community. So I had just a couple of points on the electric vehicle charging station. One is to my point earlier about not letting any funding opportunities go to waste. This is a perfect example of something that would be eligible in a green stream, or sometimes even places like Enbridge, who give us cash donations, not cash donations, but give us safety donations every once in a while. And my other comment would be that we did install a couple or more in over at the Empower building, and I think they're very underutilized. I don't think I've ever seen anybody plugged in there. So perhaps we could at the same time partner with Empower and try to get theirs up and running as well. Councillor Payne, did you have a question? Sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just a small question, because I'm not really into the charging things here, but number one, what's the difference between 3 and 2? Like you've got the electrical vehicle level 3 charging and then level 2 charging. What is the difference on those two? And for what we're paying for the chargers, we're really not making a profit at all. So if we're able to go and allow residents to use it, I think we should go that route. So at least we're going to make a little bit of a profit on this. So that was my questions.
Thank you, Mr. King.
Yeah, the difference between level 2 and level 3 is the speed at which they charge the vehicle. So one charge is much more faster. Level 3 charges much more faster than level 2. So, if we're looking for revenue generation and flexibility in terms of less time for vehicles being in that charging location, then a level 3 charger definitely has its benefits. So that's the difference between that. And then with respect to the revenue generation side, as I mentioned, we've agreed wholeheartedly with that concept. And to Mayor Dolan's point as well, when we're looking at a townwide solution for that revenue collection infrastructure, we'll certainly add in all those assets, not only that we have, but also ones that are planned. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. Other questions or comments on this section? Councillor Fowler.
Thank you, Your Worship. Page 296, we have the Emerald Ash Borer Management Program. I have the only question I really have regarding this is it in the contract, or is it a requirement environmentally to replace the emerald ash borer with the exact same trees? Considering the cost, is there not something we could do in a more cost-effective manner with other foliage, other trees, or is that specifically we take one out, we replace one in that regard?
Ms. Bowman?
Thank you, Your Worship. And through you to Councillor Fowler, we're just looking for that answer right now. I'm just seeking clarity on the replacement protocol for those trees. If you give me a moment.
I don't think it would be with the ash trees though, right? Because the beetles would then just attack.
But it says here that to be managed with proactive management, they're saying basically, if I understand correctly, you take one out and you plant a replacement. So I'm just curious.
Of a different species, I would think, right? Not the same species.
Okay.
That's I'm guessing. Go ahead, Nicole.
Yes, the team is confirming for me. There is a list of replacement trees that are selected from that. It is not a direct replacement of an ash tree.
Okay, now that being the case, when we come back to council, since we're looking for any cost savings, is there a way we can find out which trees would be more cost effective to the town? Which ones would give us a greater impact financially that we could actually save a few dollars in regard to this?
Ms. Bowman?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Councillor Fowler. Yes,
Hello.
so the team.
Hello.
Mr. Kane.
Hello, Director King, we can hear you.
Sorry, everyone. Just trying to test my mic. I'm sorry.
You're working.
Perfect. Through you to Councillor Fowler. Yes, so we have done a little bit of analysis looking at the cost of the various types of trees. So there's quite a spectrum when it comes to trees and the cost of different varieties. So we've had a look at what the most successful trees are for us to replant, and also keeping in mind the cost of those trees. So we've, I think, struck a nice balance between those two things.
And this is, Councillor Fowler, this is the one that Councillor Ices referred to earlier, right? To roll this up with the other tree that was in the other end, and also with One Town, One Team with
yes.
So that this was captured with that. So we got like kind of one. They're going to look at ways to find synergies and efficiencies there. Councillor Waters.
Yeah, I just want to mention that it's always nice to be able to offer homeowners a variety of choices, even though there is a cost differential. And plus, you don't want to get caught in the same scenario where you have all the same tree again, and a new bug comes along and wipes those all. That's part of the problem we have right now, is that we have all these trees all the same and they're all dying. So you always want to have a diversity of trees out there along a streetscape, so you don't run into this problem again, because it's happened several times with different species, elm, the ash. So you want to have a diversity of species out there, even though there is a cost differential. It's better environmentally, and it also gives homeowners a choice of the type of tree they want to have in front of their house.
Just like in your investment portfolio, you need diversification. Okay, any other questions or comments? I'm getting punchy, which means it must be time for a break. But I'd like to get through this section if it's at all possible before we take 15 minutes. So we've done police already, but there's still the stormwater section. Did anybody have any questions on that? Seeing none, we will go to the motion. And I will point out at this point, Council, that, and I apologize, Mr. Park, and I should have done this earlier, but we didn't have any questions on it. And I have a pecuniary interest on the source water protection section, as I am currently chair of the South Georgian Bay Lake Simcoe Source Protection Committee, and I receive remuneration from the province of Ontario for doing so. So I will fill out my paper and send it to you, and I apologize for the late notice. Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Mayor. I did have one question, and that was RDS 266, page 290, the Drainage Improvement Program, which is the kind of the east end of Ward 4, closer to the lake. I was wanting to ask, I was under the impression that from staff that they were going to be putting together a comprehensive strategy for dealing with the water that always accumulates, the flooding that always accumulates in those areas. I'm gathering by looking at this this program here, it looks like it's just they're just talking about roads in terms of how do we stop roads from flooding, and that kind of says various roads drainage program. I was under the impression that we were looking at a whole strategy to deal with flooding in that section. So can I get some clarification on that, please?
Ms. Jenkins?
Through your worship to Councillor Waters. Yes, RDS 266 is a program that was started a number of years ago to look specifically at areas that the public and town operations staff had identified as areas of concern. We do have another project in the budget, ENG 59, which is our flooding strategy. So the intent for that new town-wide and come up with some strategies, including innovative ideas for dealing with flooding within the municipality. So there's two sort of ongoing things. We're still continuing with our, our drainage program for various roads to try and address some of the areas that we know are of concern, but we are also taking a step back and taking a more holistic approach to looking at flooding as well.
Okay, that answers my question. The ENG 59 is that other piece to that piece, but I will make a comment on is that in that area, both the town and the Conservation Authority have allowed for homeowners to fill in lowlands, and it's beyond me why we are allowing people to do that. We're allowing to have something called positive drainage in these areas. And just like when you take a glass of water and you fill it up with sand, that water has to go somewhere. And I've had several complaints from homeowners down in that area that we've allowed certain low-lying areas to be filled in, and now they're probably going to be sold off for lots. And that water has to go somewhere. Now it's affecting other people in that area. So I hope the strategies that we're looking at is to stop allowing people to fill in low-lying areas, because it ultimately affects other people in other areas which have never been flooded before. So I hope that's a part of your strategy when you look at that, because filling in lowlands in those areas is an area to store water during those high flood times, and we've eliminated that by allowing people to fill in these lots. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody want to respond to that? Ms. Jenkins? Mr. Kane.
At least I know my microphone's working, so thank you, everybody. Yes, through to Councillor Waters, it's always a fine balance between the existing development rights of lots of record and what might potentially happen around them. So it is a partnership between the Conservation Authority and ourselves. They do have the expertise to help us with that analysis. We have gotten much better on our grading analysis and review, to the point
I think it's Mayor Dolan's comment in the past that when everyone is happy, that usually means we've reached a solution. So, we are trying to address that on site, and pre and post flows have to meet that. And if we can do a better job, through revised engineering standards, and through any background studies with our outside experts, we're certainly always looking to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions before we go to the recommendation? And is there any amendments?
Oh, yep. Sorry.
Councillor Osati.
Sorry. Yes. Oh no. So I have one for the whole section on regards to fire.
Yeah, that's it. So this is that bundle.
Okay. So and sorry, I was just trying to get something organized for staff and I haven't done it. So what I'd be looking at is that council directs staff to remove the proposed service change request related to the platooning of service in Cookstown.
Thank you.
And report back to council, I guess, with impacts.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder?
Yes, Deputy Mayor Davidson.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on the amendment? Seeing none, all in favor of that direction? Any opposed to that direction? Seeing none, and then we'll move to the recommendation as amended. Moved by Councillor Orsatti, seconded by Councillor Nicol. All those in favor? That is carried. It is 2:49. So what do you guys need? 10 minutes? Mr. Rayner.
Sorry, Your Worship. I just wasn't sure if there were other amendments to that bundle that councillors were looking to do, and happy to do that whenever it's appropriate.
Sorry, I didn't mean to rush, but I really do need to have a break. Any other amendments? We can do it after if you like, but if there's any that have come to mind. Councillor Orsatti?
I just wonder whether there was some confusion or just clarity on the other for the fire, that we were continuing with the recommendation of the fire of staying with the 89 volunteer firefighters. 5 would be lost through attrition, and the department would work with 84 volunteer firefighters, which I believe would not impact service. I just want to make
sure. You're not making an amendment?
No, no. Okay.
Do you have an amendment? Anybody else have an amendment? No, I think we're good with that. Mr. Rayner?
Sorry, Your Worship, just trying to clarify the information that's on the slide right now relates to the volunteer firefighters. But I think the first vote was actually related to the platooning.
Right.
Unless I had a big internet gap on my end.
No, you're right. You're right. The recommendation on the screen is wrong. Good. Thanks for pointing that out. It wasn't the reduction in the volunteers, it was the platooning for Station 4.
Great. So Clerks is just making that change, Your Worship, but I think Council understood that was what you voted on. That was the amendment. It was to not do the platooning in Cookstown. That was voted on and that passed. And I think now Councillor Orsatti is saying, can we run with the current complement of volunteer firefighters? In other words, not hire more volunteer firefighters to fill that complement position that exists, the 15 or so. I think, was that question to the fire chief? Sorry, I may have missed it.
All right, now I am confused. I thought Councillor Orsatti was okay with the service level change of reducing to.
Oh, okay, sorry, thank you.
Yes, I was just confirming with the others because to make sure that everybody was clear that they were all comfortable on that one. And it was the recommendation to remove the platooning option and just continue with the other recommended service level.
And that's showing on the screen now. So, all right. So we've called the vote. So Mr. Rayner?
Sorry, Your Worship. I think it's a good time for a break. Just wanted to clarify whether there seemed to be some discussion around bylaw, and I just didn't know if there was an amendment coming forward in that area as well or not. Not that I'm looking to create more work for us, but just wanted to make sure everyone has the opportunity to make any amendments at this time.
Yeah, I didn't. There was no amendments brought forward on that, and we do have the one vacant position still. So, okay. So we've called the vote, haven't we? I think we did. Okay. So it is now 2:53. How long a break do we need, people? 10 minutes? 15?
Just
10? I'm seeing
back at 6 or 3 o'clock.
I see 10. So why don't we come back at 3:05? Does that work for
Okay.
everyone? Okay, thanks everybody. 3:05 it is. And just a reminder that you mute your mic and turn off your video.
Share screen. I'm gonna share the screen. Can you hear me, Lynn? Okay.
I can hear you. I can't see you.
Yeah, I know. I tried. I didn't turn it off. I figured I'll just leave the room, come back, but now I can't get back on again. This is absolutely crazy.
Right where you
Start
mute
my video. Okay.
There you
All
go.
right. Because they keep shutting me out. I'm starting to get a complex. Oh boy.
You're not muted either, Carolyn, just so you know.
Okay, I better watch my voice.
No cursing. Okay, we're really moving right along at a good pace here today. We're on page 308 to 419. It's the internal support services and business plans. So without any further ado, if we've got everyone back, which I believe we do, we can move forward with questions and comments on this section. Councillor Fowler.
Thank you, Worship. There's one, I'm not sure which item it falls under. It's either IT 73 on page 353 or IT 89 on page 355. There's made reference to enhancement upgrades to internal process and corporate business systems to increase staff productivity and effectiveness. If you recall, I believe it was about a year ago, we had the concerns with ransomware that was with the other cities. I'm just wondering, is this going to be addressing a particular issue? Are we looking to be proactive with it along those lines? Are we looking at the programs to increase the security, considering the amount of personal information we handle on a daily basis?
Thank you for that. I'll look to Mr. Cowan if he's on there to answer that question. I think when he did come before us, he said it wasn't a matter of if, it's a matter of when. We do have the ransomware insurance, but I'll ask Mr. Cowan or sorry, Mr. Melanishan, did you want to take that one?
Yeah, I'm not too sure if you can see on the Zoom link, but Mr. Cowan is there, so I'm going to pass it off to him. I think that there's a little bit of a distinction here. A cybersecurity plan and policy is distinct from this IT capital project, but I will pass it off to Grant.
Thank you. Welcome, Grant.
Good afternoon. Through you, Mayor Dolan, to Councillor Fowler. The project you were referring to would have been IT 73, which talks about enhancements to our systems. However, on the cybersecurity side, we have a project there, IT 130, which is some security updates. And as part of that, we're looking at doing an audit that would help give us some direction, some guidance of how we can further enhance our protections. There is a number of things in place now, but this would kind of give us some another set of eyes to kind of give us some direction in that field.
So in essence, we are upgrading the security, but we still have as a backup plan the ransomware insurance should anyone find a way around the systems in place, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
St. John, New Brunswick just got hit with a huge one. Okay, other questions and comments regarding this section? Councillor Orsatti?
Okay, I have a couple, but I'll make them quick. This one is on page 310. Just a very quick one for Mr. Mellington in regards to I'm just going to go to that page right now. It references the financial relief that was given to residents about their taxes, and the taxes are due January 31st. They are not waived. And I just wonder if he could just let our residents know whether for 2021, whether there'll be interest and penalties that will accrue if they do not pay their 2021 taxes or for the 2021 payments. Thank
Through your worship to Councillor Sadi, yes, based on council approval last year, there was a waiver of interest and penalties up to December 31st. Those interest and penalties will be applied on the following into the following tax year. On January 31st, they will be due. Interest and waiver penalties notices will be issued come February 1st. We do not have a plan in place at this point in time. We are suggesting bringing a staff report to council next year once we have a much better handle on a few things. Number one, the impact and the ability of people to pay back those arrears or their arrears and taxes. Get a handle on what other municipalities are suggesting, because currently other municipalities have not taken any action, as well as we really want to see the impact of the second wave before we make any more recommendations as far as any relief for the public. And we're considering any relief that we are considering would be definitely needs-based, whereas this year's waiver of interest and penalties was broad-based and generic across the entire town. So these are some things we're working at and are definitely going to bring something forward to council once we get a better handle on it in the new year.
Thank you.
I would agree with the needs-based piece for sure. I think that it can be a slippery slope if people get too far behind and then they get into worse trouble. For me personally, the best thing I ever did was switch to the monthly payment, because I'm not good with giant bills, but I'm okay with, the month-to-month bills, and it was really, really helped me. And I would highly recommend it for people like me who aren't very good at budgeting to switch to the monthly payment. Other questions or comments on this, Councillor Sadi?
Thank you. It's just clarifications I think are important for our community. On page 327, Ms. Peg, I had asked her about this item because, when we have high percentages, it draws attention. In the workplace health and wellness, it shows an increase of 190.76%. When I don't know if she's on here to just add, there she is, this was, maybe Ms. Peg, you just want to sort of help with our community, that this isn't a new hire, but a shifting, if you just help explain that.
Director Peg?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Arsadi. So you are correct. The increase under the workplace health and wellness line item is a result of a repurpose of a field supervisor position. So you'll note the corresponding change within the operations service bundles. That position was repurposed into a corporate health and safety partner, and thence the funding was moved into the P&T budget. In addition, within that line item, the Joint Health and Safety Committee budget, which previously fell within the Legal Services bundle, has been moved into P&T to align with that corporate health and safety position.
Thank you. And just a follow-up statement there, Your Worship. I was quite impressed with when departments needed a staff member, how staff had done all these shifts. I actually wrote out 3 pages of a person being removed and where they were repurposed, and aligned everyone to make sure that it all matched up. So I was quite impressed with that. And I think it took a lot of effort and a lot of juggling. So I just want to recognize staff's efforts in that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on this section? This is the backup section. Councillor Orsatti.
Sorry, just one other comment that was from this section, which was in Fleet, page 412. A lot of inventory here in this section. I'm just going to go to that. Many residents will be happy with the new, especially in areas like my ward with intensified areas and slopes and hills. Those residents, Saracena Crescent, when we have new mowers and equipment that will handle all the different hills and everything. But I had asked Ms. Bowman about the program where the vehicles that we are replacing, the program for the replacement, because the vehicles are sold for the old ones that we are retiring, and the revenue goes back into the department. So I don't know whether she wanted to add any information, but I thought that was important for our community to know that, you know, this type of equipment is always expensive, but it's good to know that the department also looks at the sale and you know, recoveries back in. So I don't know if Ms. Bowman wanted to add anything.
Did you want to add anything, Ms. Bowman?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Councillor Orsatti, I would just add that funding goes back into the Vehicle Reserve Fund. Finance can certainly speak to a little bit more about how that's used, but generally speaking, it's going into purchasing our next vehicles. And we have been quite successful working with the purchasing team on getting the best possible market value for those used pieces of equipment, such that we can retain those funds for future investment. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. Question on IT 143, page 360, offering public Wi-Fi in public areas. Just a quick question. Innisfil Beach Park, is there any opportunity to generate revenue, since a good portion of those people are visitors who come to the park on the weekends? Is there any way to allow people to access that, but via a revenue source, in terms of when you go to the airport, if you want to use the Wi-Fi there, you have to buy a certain amount for a certain amount of time. So people are there all day long, and if they're using their phones, they could very easily go over the limits. I didn't know whether or not there was an opportunity for, you know, for those particular times where we have a lot of visitors in the park, an opportunity to generate some revenue off of them. Just a thought.
Mr. Cowan.
Through you, Mayor Dolan. It is definitely something we can consider. The shape of how this might go will be a little bit more addressed as to what our connectivity strategy looks like that will be coming towards council in the near future. However, it is something we can keep the revenue generation in mind as we plan some of the implementations.
And a second question on the fleet replacement. I noticed that we're planning on replacing a Zamboni, and I didn't know whether or not, is it worthwhile considering keeping that unit for the library in terms of the new skating rink that's going to be going in there? Is it worthwhile, as opposed to buying a brand new machine, which is going to be, you know, probably $100,000? Is it worthwhile keeping that one, buying a new one for the arena, and using that one there?
Ms. Bowman.
Thank you, Worship, and through you to Councillor Waters. That had been a point of investigation by us as well. Certainly our outdoor rinks now, with having the Cookstown rink and with the skating trail coming for the town square, what we're looking at is a lighter model that can actually be floated and included, with that also being an electric model. Again, for that outdoor space, looking to make sure we're not blasting exhaust, it would be ideal to have an electric model in that space. Again, it's also a little bit narrower for use on that trail. Yes, that'd be about it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Waters. Other questions, comments? Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Worship. Not a real concern, just something, just an observation, I guess. On page 415, the fleet policy assessment, I guess sucked in a little bit. This must be a screenshot of an Excel sheet or something like that, but the titles with asterisks above them can be clicked on for more information. Clearly, that function doesn't work in our PDF version of this. So just a comment on it, that's all.
Yeah, good observation. Thank you. We could go online and do it though, if we wanted. Okay, other questions or comments? I hate to jinx it, but this is our last session. This is our last section. Oh, I jinxed it. Councillor Waters.
Sorry, Mr. Vickers had been talking about the purchase of electric equipment, and I was just going through the list here, and I don't see any purchases unless I'm not looking hard enough. So if I could be corrected, I'd appreciate that.
Mr. Vickers.
Through your worship, to Councillor Waters, the two vehicles that they were in the budget, and they were to accompany the two bylaw officers that we had originally asked for. But so we withdrew hiring those two officers, but we left the stations in because we could probably get money in and work towards utilizing them. So I think there was a little bit of not quite the way it was originally planned. Oh, here's Nicole.
Ms. Bowman.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Councillor Waters. Greening our fleet is something that we are investing in investigation right now. Trying to figure out the best way to do that, but there's a bit of a chicken and egg with electric vehicles. You do need to have those charging stations there and ready to go in order to bring in those electric vehicles. So setting up those charging stations now would be a really positive first step. And as we conduct our analysis on which vehicles within our fleet would be best to green based on how they're used, their life cycle and that sort of thing, then they'll be ready to bring into the fleet when those purchases come due.
Thank you. Other questions? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say thank you.
Great. I did have a question to item IT 148. I was really intrigued by that. It's the volunteer management software. And if it's what I think it is, I'm really looking forward to something like that we can build this library of dedicated volunteers in our community, because as we've seen, we can have such great success. Just think of Jennifer Richardson and her Halloween decorating and her Christmas decorating, and that's one person. And I think that you know, the Snow Angels program and all of the volunteers that happen, I think this is a really great direction to go, and a way to enable all the firepower that we have in Innisfil, all of our dedicated volunteers and wonderful residents. Other questions or comments? I'm seeing none. Are there any amendments to this section? For all those of our staff who do the support services, and you know, it's just because we don't have as many questions for you doesn't mean you're not as important to the organization. We just don't get the same number of phone calls to our homes complaining about, you know, a road repair or a barking dog, but it doesn't mean that all the services that you do to support those who are looking after those things, they certainly matter tremendously, and we couldn't do it without you. So seeing no changes, then I would ask if there's a mover and a seconder for this section. Councillor Van Berkel and Councillor Waters, all those in favor? That's carried. Mr. CAO, where do we go from here?
Hi, Worship. There is a number of appendices to the budget binder. I think you've covered the meat of it. But if there were any clarification questions or any questions or concerns, happy to address those now related to the appendices. Two of those big appendices are, of course, the LSRCA and MBCA, which you received presentations on at the last council meeting. There are the projected capital projects going out to 23 to 2030. But again, those we're calling placeholders for now, particularly given the pandemic and our capital infrastructure needs. We'll be back to you with some firmer forecasts in the next budget cycle. And of course, the added library budget, which you received as an additional appendices, although I think we may have a specific vote on that. I'm not sure exactly. Yeah, so happy to take questions or comments, Your Worship, on those appendices.
Questions or comments on the appendices? Councillor Orsatti?
Thank you. Yes, Your Worship. I didn't want to lose the option of mentioning the library operating budget, which was added to the online version. The library worked very hard on their budget, cutting items as well as looking, reducing where they could in their services and their costs. And this is my second term sitting on the library board, and I have to say that I'm always impressed with the fine detail. Every board meeting, we go over the monthly operating budget line by line. And so there's a lot of input and a lot of thought to that. And I hate to have it just slip by without even recognition of all the work that went into that by all the board members, the staff, and our CEO and acting CEO, and want to thank them and encourage residents to go online, look at that and see all the services and what they how well they manage all the libraries with their budget.
Thank you for that, Councillor. And nothing like a pandemic to make a community realize just how important our library services are to us. Any other questions on any of the appendices? Councillor Waters. You're muted, Councillor.
Thank you. This is a far reach. I'm just kind of looking at quickly at the 23 to 30 budget, page 464. And I noticed that there is a plan for, it's called a Facility 16 Innisfil Recreation Complex Modular Fiberglass Building for $103,000. Just wondering whether or not the town looked at using used shipping container for that, unless it's not big enough. So I just thought I'd throw that out there because they're only $2,000, and even if you get one fully outfitted, is only $50,000. So and they last forever. I think it's probably better than fiberglass. So, anyways, I thought I'd throw that out there for some contemplation down the road in the next few years.
Thank you for that, sir. Anyone else? I tend not to go past like 23 at least anyway, because I don't think there's been a year I've been here that it's been accurate out to that far out. And also because, there'll be another council making those decisions. So I'm excited to see what they come up with. Anyone else? Seeing no more questions. Mr. Rayner, any closing comments? Mr. Melanishen, any closing comments? I'm sorry.
Sure, Your Worship, if we could have a motion to accept the appendices for information.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Nicol and seconded by Councillor Arsati. All those in favor? That is carried. So, as a gift to all of you, my Christmas gift to you is I think you're going to get Wednesday off. I'm pleased. I think I want to hear back from all of you what you thought of the format. I think where we saved a day was the fact that everybody'd gone through the budget ahead of time and we didn't have 20 or 30-minute presentations for each section prior to each section. I think that really helped us move along. And as the Deputy Mayor said earlier, if we can do a $570 million budget in one day, we should be able to do just almost $100 million budget in one day. So well done to everybody. Councillor Payne, you had a question?
Thank you, Your Worship. No, I don't have a question. I have a comment. And I just want to say that this budget that we did this year was so much easier than the first one. And it was so easy to read, and just to absorb even. It was great. So compliments to all of the staff. I think you did a fabulous job, and this is going to work well. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor. Any other comments on the process, what we could include, what we should have done without, what we did right, what we did wrong? Give it some thought over the next, few days. And if you think of anything, please be sure to send it off to staff. They're always looking for your input and a constructive criticism at all times. Mr. Melanishen?
Through Your Worship, I want to thank Council for the diligence that went on the last several weeks since the tabling of the budget. The questions ahead of time were greatly appreciated, helped us do our job and be prepared for this deliberation. Council communications will be engaging and sending a brief survey out, as Mayor Dolan suggested. Please provide your honest and heartfelt sentiments, good or bad. We appreciate it, and any way we can improve it for next year truly would be helpful. I think these open, transparent deliberations and discussions are good for all of us, and especially the residents who we are diligently trying to support. So your feedback's important. We're evolving and trying to improve each budget cycle. And once again, just thank you very much. And we did it in one day. So congratulations to everyone. Appreciate it.
Mr. Rayner.
Thank you, Worship, members of Council. Given that we just really don't want to let you go, we just love doing this. It's the thrill of our year. I wonder if there is an opportunity, Your Worship, to have a quick discussion to get Council's feedback. The path of least resistance to moving to full approval on December 9th, for example, would be for us to get a sense of whether Council would entertain an increased tax rate stabilization reserve, accessing that reserve, to manage I think it's roughly about $200,000 in operating that has been asked of staff to find a way forward. That's not to say we won't continue to look for efficiencies and to squeeze that stone for the additional 200,000. We won't use the tax rate stabilization reserve unless we can't find another way, but it would expedite the process to allow the tax rate stabilization reserve to be able to be the sort of backstop for this. The other thing that will allow us to do is get a better sense of where the pandemic is going to leave us, so to speak, as we move through 2021. Council, in the proposed budget, we have about, I'll have to be corrected, but I think it's around $30,000 proposed for 2021 already, in terms of access to the tax rate stabilization reserve, and about $350,000 for 2022. But all of that is based on a set of assumptions that have a lot to do with growth and our economy. So if the economy rebounds quickly, I'm fairly confident that we won't need to access the tax rate stabilization reserve quite as much as we may. But of course, council will always have the opportunity to update this. So that's certainly one option. The other option, of course, that's on the table is to very moderately increase from the 0% for 2021. The issue, of course, to remember is that $200,000 in operating for 2021 creates a $200,000 problem in 2022 as well. So it's a $400,000 issue that we need to address that potentially could be going on the tax rate stabilization reserve as an option. But I think Councillor Sadi said it and your worship said it, it's about it would be less than 0.2% on the tax rate. So just to get a feel, if either of those options are something something that council wants to consider, we'll of course do our hard work to find it. I'm conscious of the turnaround timeline between now and putting a final budget in front of you for this 2021-2022 year.
Thank you. I think it's a good time to have that discussion. And I think we can start with the assumption that option one is for to leave no stones unturned. So we're all there. So I think what we're trying to land on now is whether we want to pull out of the tax rate stabilization reserve, which is sitting at about 4.8. Is that right, Mr. Melanishan? 4.8, or whether we want to look at something like a 0.2 increase or a combination thereof for 2021. And open for comments and questions. Councillor Van Berkel.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think, first of all, I have to commend staff. They did a wonderful job and a great job on putting this budget together. It was very easy to read. And obviously, that's why we got through it in one day. It was given to us in plenty of time ahead of time. And, going through it, I didn't have to sit down for 6 hours at a time. I did maybe 2 or 3 hours on several different days to go through it. So I have to commend to say that they did a wonderful job on this budget. As far as the 0% increase, I feel that, this is a minus budget, like a -1, because we're picking up, the police budget, we're conservation, NVCA, so it's not 0%. We're actually taking money and putting it in there. 0% is blended budget. That's like a minus budget as far as I'm concerned. So, and you yourself, Your Worship, have sat in council in the past where we, worked diligently to come up with a 1 or 2% budget where it should have been 3 or 4%. And in future years, it always came back to hit us, and we had to, we had to increase it sometimes 3-4% because we did that. So I have no problem, increasing the budget 0.02 or 0.03% to make up that little bit of difference that we're giving away. And I'm talking about giving away the increase in the police budget, the increase in MCA, so that we make up for that at least. And then we're still, in my eyes, at a 0% blended budget. That's my feeling.
Thank you, Councillor Van Berkel. Next is Councillor Orsatti.
Thank you. I have no problem with accessing the stabilization, the reserve stabilization reserve budget. I think it's a one-time. It's not something to dip into it all the time. Staff have really worked hard to achieve what we've asked. We're looking at minor tweaking. It's not, a huge impact. So I have no problem with staff looking at that to achieve what our requests.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Nicol.
Your Worship, I agree completely with Councillor Orsatti. This council made the decision months ago that next year would be a 0% increase. The year after be a 1% increase. That's blended. We knew we were going to absorb whatever we needed to do that. We promised the community that, and we have to stick with that. The tax rate stabilization fund is there for just this kind of reason. I think that staff have already turned just about every stone over in this town. If there's a couple more they can to find some gravel, that'd be great. But as a last resort, they definitely utilize the fund to make sure we do not burden the community whatsoever. If it's over $4 million there, and we're talking $100,000 to $200,000 worth need. Let's utilize that. That's why the rainy day fund is there, as far as I'm concerned. So let's take care of our community, get through this pandemic together, and we'll be so much stronger. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
I concur with Councillor Van Berkel on this one, but let's let the staff do their job. And I think they've done a great job so far in this budget. So let's see what they can find. And then when we find out if they can't, then I'll make a decision whether we increase it or whether we borrow from reserves. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. But I think what staff's looking for today is, assuming they can't find it, which of those two options are you in favor of?
As a business person, I have to go with Councillor Van Berkel. We increase it to 1.18. We increased it. So
thank you. Councillor Fowler was next.
Thank you, Your Worship. Ultimately, if it wasn't a year of the pandemic, then I'd be more inclined to agree with Councillor Van Berkel and Deputy Mayor Davidson. However, as we came to the people in a time of need and told them that this is what we're presenting, I'd like to basically toe the line there. If we have to dip into a rainy day fund one time, I can see it if it becomes a consistent issue as the second wave hits, then we reevaluate at that point in time to see what else and what other options we have available. And again, I agree with the other councillors that staff has worked their fingers to the bone and given us a really, really good budget. And I want to say thank you to them as well.
Thank you. Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to agree with Councillor Sadi and Councillor Nicol and Councillor Fowler on this one here. I says, the rainy day fund is meant for, bad years, and I can't imagine, I've been around for 63 years, and I can't say there's been a worse year than this year. And if we can't access that money now, we'll never access it. So I suggest we take that $400,000 out of that $4.8 million budget and use it appropriate and stick to our word that we would deliver a zero budget increase for this year because everyone's hurting. And I think, we stick to our guns on this one here, and that's why we have the fund. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions? And I'll call for a straw vote. Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I'm going to chime in here as well. The rainy day fund that we have, this is the right time to go into that. I think it also speaks to the morale of our residents. We did promise them the 0%. We look to our neighbors, I think Oro and Barrie and Clearview, everybody is aiming for that 0%. The county was 0%. I think it speaks to us all being together in this and trying to help each other get through this pandemic. So.
Thank you. Councillor Van Berkel.
Your Worship, I didn't mean when I was speaking, like I was either or. I wasn't dip into the, into the fund or raise it 0.3%, whatever the consensus of council is. I just think, that we should give staff something to work with. That's all.
Thank you. Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I have to concur with the others as well. We promised a 0% increase, and I think we have to stick with that. And if we've got the money to help us out, then I think we go for it. But I really like to stick with the 0% because that's what we said we were going to do, and we did it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Mr. Rayner, I think you've got the general consensus here. I don't think you need a motion or anything like that. But I just can't, I can't say enough how incredible, what an incredible job staff did on this budget this year to go through what we went through, and still come out and be able to find a 0% increase in our budget, which, and Councillor Van Berkel will correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is the first time ever that this has happened. I remember once, we're still in the old building, so mid-90s. At that point, the education tax was going up double digit. The education portion was going up double digit. So it was up to us to cut in order for us not to have such a huge impact on our residents. And the lowest we ever got was a 0.8% increase. And even then, it still was like a 6% increase to the residents because of everything else going up. And we still got beaten up over it, even though we had, really towed the line in order to make it, more palatable. But in the end, we're on the front line. And so I think being able to do this year has just been incredible. And I'm just so proud of the entire team and everything you've accomplished. And Mr. Melanishin and his very first budget. Now you've set the bar, Mr. Melanishin. So you're going to have to just keep going in that direction. And proud of council for really diving into this book and going through it with a fine-tooth comb and coming out with, in the most cases, consensus. So moving in a direction that we established through our strategic plan, and we are, steering the ship and not kind of meandering and turning course halfway through. So good for us. Last word to the CAO.
Thank you, Worship. No, just a big thank you to council. Just really appreciate your guidance and your hard work on this, and we look forward to bringing it forward. Looks like, fingers crossed, we're going to bring it on December 9th. Looks like we can turn this for then. So hopefully, as you said, it'll be a nice holiday gift.
That will be 2 holiday gifts. So one holiday gift is we get Wednesday off, and the other holiday gift is we get the 16th of December off. Is that right?
That's the plan, Your Worship. We don't want to jinx it. But.
No, don't jinx it. This is where the deputy clerk comes on and tells me I have to do the confirming bylaw. So rise and report out of committee of the whole. We're going to change that motion to take off on December 2nd. And also ask communications staff if they would please put a big shout out so that people don't log in on December the 2nd and wonder where we all are. So if we could do a press release or a shout out on social media, that would be wonderful. Moved by Councillor Payne and seconded by Councillor Waters. All those in favor? That's carried. I'm just going to ask if Mr. Ross can tell us if there was anybody watching today. Did we have an audience for this? Oh, Councillor Nichols nodding. So we must have had some people.
Yep. Yes, we did. We peaked out at, let me just get those numbers for you. We peaked out at 19 concurrently. So.
No, that's pretty good. Like, I know that doesn't sound good when you've got a town of almost 37,000 people, but it's a record. It's a record. We have never had 17 people or 19 people stay with us through budget day. That's incredible. Councillor Nichol?
Your Worship, I think I saw just over 30 at one point anyways, during breaks and stuff like that. So it was a pretty full council room. Surprising.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I read that wrong. It was 34 as the max and 19 is present.
So. Wow, that's awesome. Thank you to you 19 people who hung with us all day. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Correspondence received, we have none. And next is the confirming bylaw, and that would be moved by Councillor Ices and seconded by Councillor Van Berkel. All those in favor? That's carried. And finally, adjournment. That's moved by Councillor Nichol and seconded by Councillor Fowler. All those in favor? Thank you, and thank you to all of staff. And yeah, now you can get more work done on Wednesday. So really happy.
turn on their videos so we.
Yes, please. If you are up to it, please turn your video on, and we'd love to see all your smiling faces. So thanks for all your help today. Very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good evening.
See you, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Okay, we're out.